Welcome to this edition of The Bigger Game. My name is Abiza Rashid. Today I'm here with Wes Mathews, CEO of Stealth Consulting, father of five, entrepreneur. Boy, Wes, I don't know where to start, where to end. So great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Abizer. Awesome. Glad to be here. Happy to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I've always been, I've witnessed your journey from HLM all the way through today, and now starting over and with the whole new process and doing it all over again for round two. Would love to hear a little bit more about that journey, and I don't know where to start. I guess I'll let you tell us where you want to start. Kind of share a little bit about that journey and kind of what you gained from it, and the bumps and bruises along the way. It'd be great to hear.
Yeah, for sure. I should probably lay down for this. I feel no, there's a lot, right? I mean, there's a lot of good, a lot of bad, a lot of learning, but I think just my background and naturally, like I've always been an entrepreneur, and I started my first like real company. I think we launched in like 2009. So that company referred to HLM. It was called High Level Marketing. So it's a website design, digital marketing company. Like we did websites, we did SEO, we did paid search. And I mean, really, I kind of had this vision of like, I'm just going to throw something together, deliver good work. And I don't know, I thought I maybe would get 4 or 5 years out of it. And, we grew it to a pretty good size and had a lot of fun doing it. I think at the time, I really saw a need in the marketplace for quality. Everybody I was running up against, small business owners were always complaining about just bad web companies, or their web guy won't call them back and they're just spending all this money. And so I had that like planted in the back of my head. And at the time I was in my mid-20s, and I was actually doing mortgage loans for a while, and it just didn't feel right. Like I just kind of felt like kind of punching in the clock, so to speak, and it just never really felt right. So in my 20s, I got into, tech or websites because people trusted me and took me serious in my mid-20s developing websites because it just fit. And 20, a lot through that journey, right? So I think it was, one of the pivotal things that I think I learned about myself was, I think around 2014 is probably the time I met you, which was joining entrepreneur organization, right? So, finding other people out there to commiserate with, that was kind of the thing back then. Like, who else is going through this crap? Like, why do people do this to themselves, being this thing called an entrepreneur? But, entrepreneur was a great experience because, that was an opportunity to be with other like-minded entrepreneurs. And, we were all in pretty, other industries, but everybody, at the end of the day, we're all entrepreneurs kind of going through this. And, it was really great to connect with over 100 people and kind of share stories. And, we developed a forum. So like we'd really dive deep on personal, family, business. So that was a really helpful thing throughout the journey. But the bigger learning in that for me was discovering EOS. So I know it's kind of confusing to say EO and then EOS. People are like, well, what does that mean? But, EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. So simply it's a framework. And for me, that was like a aha moment, because up until that point, like everything in my life and like the entrepreneurial journey was very chaotic. And up until I, read the book Traction, I think I have one laying around here somewhere. I give them out as much as I can. All these problems I felt were happening. And I would always try to like solve these problems, or like, why are all these fires going on all the time? And, little did I know is I was causing probably all of them. So the reality is like learning EOS.
Hey, let's pause there for a second. Again, if we can pause it, because that's a great statement. Yeah. I was causing all of them. Share a little bit about that. That's interesting. So you started off this company just thinking you get 4 or 5 years, you put this together and get going, realize you need a structure. So you find EOS, you find a bunch of other entrepreneurs to hang out with in EO, and then you wake up one morning and realize that you're probably the source of 99% of your issues. So tell me more about that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
I think a lot of us don't quite appreciate that about ourselves, and so me included. And so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the ego. I think it has a lot to do with getting out of your own way. I think for me it was these moments of kind of look in the mirror and like really understand like what's my part in this. And then I started to like get other people's perspective and feedback. And at the time, my team was sort of terrified of me. And, I'm kind of a louder guy. If you think of like a radio tuner, right? Like when I think I'm at like a 3, I'm at like a 10. But, when you're an entrepreneur and you have employees, sometimes you get a lot of yes man. And people aren't going to give you the real feedback because at the end of the day, you're like the boss, right? So I didn't realize that. It sounds so stupid, and like in hindsight, looking back. So I would just literally change my mind like 10th of a way through a project, halfway through a project, whatever, and just like completely flip directions and just yo-yo people around. And then not really understanding why they're not grasping or why they're not at my level of thinking or doing. And that's when I had the realization. And then when I read Traction and kind of had that moment, I mean, it was like a really crazy moment when I read it. I'm like, man, who's this Gino Wickman guy? And why is he like in my head? And it's such a simple concept, but it was that realization of like, maybe I got to pause, slow down, and really assess what's going on. And it wasn't until, the whole concept of getting like the leadership buy-in and all in alignment of, where are we really going as a company? Because everything in my mind made crystal clear sense because it was all in my head. But I wasn't sharing that amongst the organization. We had like over 50 employees, right? And I look back in that moment now and I'm like, I don't even know how we got to that point. Like it gives me chills to think about how I used to be. But Abizer, I mean, to be honest with you, it was like eating a big slice of humble pie and just being like, you know what? Like, it's not about me, right? It's about the team. Because again, to go back, I started this company selfishly because I wanted to like make money and do my own thing. And, like everybody else, right? Or some people are like, I just want to, have this freedom. But I didn't realize like I actually created something real and created a team and like a culture. And not until then was it's like I have to shift as a leader and really be a true leader. That's when I kind of transform a little bit. Now, I'm not like 100% by any means, but I tend to, kind of analyze like what's my part in this? How am I making this person feel? Is it clear? Right? Because like what's crystal clear in my mind usually isn't clear in other people's minds. So I'm constantly, it's just like it's I don't think a lot of it too is just growth as an entrepreneur, and you have to go through certain things, to kind of learn and understand yourself. Just what your thing is, right, and what you need to work on, and seek feedback on. I guess if that helps. Beezer, I think I lost you. You're back.
Yeah. I think, sorry about that. Yeah, I think that takes a lot of courage, man. A lot of vulnerability, a lot of courage, a lot of self-awareness to be able to, you make it sound like you just woke up one morning, you had this epiphany. I'm sure it took a process, and it took you to, it took something from you to actually be able to come up with that and to actually step into it. Like you said, humble pie, right? And actually take ownership of that. It's all mind altering, right? When I walk into a thing and it's all about me, and it's all about the cash, all about just building a business, and then suddenly waking up one morning and realizing that there's culture involved, there's people involved. Everything that's going on in my head isn't really happening out in reality, right? I mean, how many of us as founders and visionaries and people that have these great ideas get caught up in our own heads, me included, right? And then that never gets communicated out to the world. And like you said, the whiplash, right? I'm at 10% of this project, 50% of this project, and I'm shifting gears because I see something bigger, better, broader. And I'm wondering why the team isn't following me. Like, it's so easy to see. Why can't you see it, right? It's an amazing epiphany that you just talked about.
And what stands out to me with that too,
really,
right?
Like you said, Gino Wickman.
Go ahead. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay, but I think the thing that stood out to me the most and like the biggest aha realization was once I read Traction, I understand like I need this in my life, and I hired an implementer right away. But the reality was, it wasn't until which I was excited after I read the book and understood like I need this, but until I actually went through the accountability chart exercise. So, right, as an entrepreneur building a company, I really didn't think through. There's the founder, there's the head of sales, head of marketing, head of HR, head of finance, and all of these seats. And the realization is I was at the head of all of those seats, right? So you're an entrepreneur, you're the janitor, you're the CEO, right? But what I didn't do or know how to do or just lack the wherewithal because we were just growing, I never put somebody in a seat and gave them the power and or the autonomy to just do their job well, right? I was micromanaging everything, down to the specific, right? And I don't know how I was able to do it, but reflecting back, it was that opportunity of saying, hey, like, what am I best in the world at, right? What do I want to do? And what am I doing that I'm terrible at? And just really understanding that stuff and then really putting a plan in place because I had really good people around me. And once that sort of box opened, that's when kind of the floodgates happened because I started to identify the right people that stepped up. Then I could really start to engage in those leadership conversations and get the feedback. So it wasn't until having that realization that something has to change because I can't run at this capacity. But there's a quote out there. I don't know where it came from, but it's like, choose your hard. And I was just, I was making it really hard for myself. And then once I implemented that, I mean, it took a decent time to, really click, but man, then it kind of went to the other side of the spectrum. I wasn't needed. I literally built it so great that I really wasn't needed for the organization. And then I felt kind of sad and sorry for myself because I had nothing to do.
The yin and the yang, one side to the other. So when you take a look at that journey, that's a very interesting, journey from the professional side. When you look at that same time frame in your personal side, we said father of five. I wonder how many kids you had during that time, and what was that like when you, because at least in my experience, how I am one place, I am everywhere in my life, right? So what was that like, and how has that shifted over time?
I mean, reflecting back during that time, I mean, having at one point I had 4 kids under the age of 5 at one time. And my wife, we had twins, so like that was the challenge. I mean, my home life is chaotic, like beyond chaotic. And my business life is beyond chaotic. And I'm a visionary and I cause all the chaos. But I will say, in my experience as a visionary, it's like I look at personal, family, business. Like I really look at those 3 like pillars in my life: personal, family, business. And I feel like in my world, 2 of them are always like dialed in and one's a little bit wonky. Like rarely are they all 3 ever like, you know. And I think at the time, like it was so chaotic at home. And my wife's a saint. I mean, she was a pediatric nurse, so like she has the ability to manage and or like be the COO of the house, so to speak, right? Operationally, and just so we kind of had a good, we still do have a great yin and yang there. But honestly, like I always, oops, my arm just broke here. As an entrepreneur, sorry, my arm just fell. As an entrepreneur, I never sacrificed, like, my family was the most important thing to me. So like I never worked like 100 hours a week, like to miss anything that they were doing, right? So being there as a dad was always more important to me than like taking that extra client meeting, right? Or like picking them up, or like, so I tried to really, be all in during the day, but like once at 5 o'clock, so to speak, like I would be all in at home. But it was a tough balancing act. Like I don't know if I could go through it again. I think that's when my beard just turned white, honestly, during those years.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, the whole micromanagement piece and managing all specific details. So that was more of a business thing. It really didn't play out in your personal life or your family life.
Look, I probably have some control issues, right? Like I need to be in control, kind of a thing. But I also think though, like from a family perspective, like being the being the father, being the leader of the family, like I didn't get lost in those details. Like I kind of, in my own mind, my wife sat in that accountability chart and she owned it and she did a really great job. Yeah, like we had already done that, like without saying it or doing it. Like she kind of managed the house. So it just that thank God that worked, because that could have spiraled quickly.
Wow, that's fantastic. So so you set up this company, you set it up to a certain level, you cash out, and then you come back and you do it all over again. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, so part of my when I sold the company, I was just burnt out, right? I mean, COVID happened. I really didn't understand, like, moving forward what the world was going to look like. I mean, it was kind of an uncharted territory. And being in digital marketing, right? Like the value and it was the right time in the sense of like, private deals or private equity. So at the time, I'd always in the back of my mind, like, why do you launch a company? I mean, ultimately to sell it. That was always in the back of my mind, but this kind of came up quick. And, really how my partner and I structured the deal is really interesting, because we sold the majority of it. We kept a portion of it, and we both stayed on for 2 years to kind of help transition. We were both out in 2 years, and then we're both on the board. So it was sort of this deal of like, hey, we could take a large, cash injection up front. We can stay part of the company for a couple of years, and then we'll be on the board in perpetuity. And that's essentially what we've done. So it's been about 4.5 years since I did that deal. And, the realization I had is, number one, spending 2 years after I did the deal was miserable. I'm probably one of the most unemployable human beings you're ever going to have on your podcast. It's just, once it just the cultures, it just never worked. So like going from the original founder, right, to now like chief growth officer or whatever, right, a C title, to now, when somebody buys a company, it just we thought it would work and it just didn't work. And I didn't have the power, and I gave up that power because I had sold the company. So it was kind of this weird, it was kind of like this great thing I did, but on the flip side, it kind of was kind of funky as well. But the reason why I share that is because I think it had a lot of learning, like what I want and what I don't want, right? So, after that experience, just playing a lot of golf, like not really doing a whole heck of a lot, because I'm like, well, you just grow a company and sell it, and the American dream, right? But the reality is I kind of got into this weird, like, I don't know if depression or just like feeling really sorry for, like, I had no value. I didn't feel like I had any value. What was interesting is, like, at one point, right, like this was going off all the time, in the heyday. Let's just call it the heyday, right? Like I'm getting text and I'm important and all these things. And then all of a sudden I sell the company, right? And like this just stops. And like everything stops. And I had a hardcore reality of like, I'm not as important as I thought I was, right? And you start to question, like, what am I doing this for? Like, what does all this mean? So I kind of went through that for a period. And I met a guy, actually. He kind of he spoke my language in the sense of like really focused on personal, family, business, but he kind of took it a step further, like with God, friends and family and stuff. So he kind of helped me manage through my priorities in life. And look, you can only swing the golf club. I mean, I think you have to have a purpose. And for me, my purpose is, I have to build, and that's why I got bored of my last company. And I kind of mentioned, like, I wasn't needed, and I got bored because I was done building in that company. And, what kind of led me to start the next company was that's where I get enjoyment. That's where I get fulfillment, is in the creation and, building something. And I have a unique ability to see the world differently, where I see problems and I like to align solutions to those problems. And if there's enough people that have the same problem, we can make it repeatable. We can grow a company around it. And this version of me, I'm like, I don't want hundreds of employees. I want really good people, like Navy SEAL quality people on my team that do really good work. And I want to be able to control who's on the team and who our clients are. So that was a big part of the launch of the company. Was I don't want to just be everything to everybody. I have an opportunity now to be selective and really just do what I want to do with who I want to do it with. And it's been really fulfilling.
So I'm sorry. So was that your biggest lesson from working as a C-suite person rather than the owner in those 2 years?
Yeah,
it was like actually taking the look from the employee version of that and then kind of realizing what you wanted.
If I could do it again, I wouldn't change anything. But if I would do it again, I think it's really important for entrepreneurs before they sell a company to really spend the time and map out the next 3 to 6 years of their life. And that's something I didn't do. So imagine like just not having that plan and then like no responsibility, right, outside of your family. And I think that was my challenge, right, of just not really thinking that through and being like, I'll just take the day on as it comes. Like, it just doesn't matter. But the reality was, for me, I should have figured that out prior to. So, yeah, I really think, there's a really annoying song out there. I think I said this to you before, but I love it. It's Spice Girls, What You Want, What You Really, Really Want.
Right.
And I think that song is lovely because it's like, it speaks the truth. Like, what do you want? And I don't think I asked myself that question. Like, I didn't know what I wanted, to the point, like, I sold the company, had all this autonomy, all this stuff. And my wife's like, you need to like wake up and change. Like, this is terrible. Like, you're miserable. So here I did all these things I thought was the best. And now I'm in a situation where like I'm feeling sorry for myself. My wife's all upset with me. And I'm like, man, I got to like pull my head out of my ass. Hopefully that's helpful. But I think everybody has to go through their own journey. But I also can say that, money wasn't the end all be all, right? Like, there's so much more. It's commodity. It's a tool. And it's, what's your purpose? And I used to kind of laugh at that stuff, right? People like say that, or you hear it all the time. Like, man, I'm so sick and tired of hearing this crap, but it's true. I think you got to figure out and keep working. Like, what's your purpose, and how do you want to fulfill your time? And once I found that, and it re-sparked when I created Stealth, because I fell out of love with digital marketing because we were just a commodity and a product. And it's like such a sterile thing. And I also feel like, did you ever see that movie Fight Club?
I did.
Yes, okay, so there's a part in Fight Club where, so they create that Fight Club, right? And Edward Norton, like, as time goes on, he looks at it like something. He goes to another town and sees Fight Club happening, and they're doing things that he doesn't align with. And he has this moment of realization that this is bigger than him, and he didn't create this. And that's what happened to me at HLM. Like, it was bigger than me. And I think for me, it was understanding that as an entrepreneur and where I want to be plugged into the process, it's in that creation part. Like, once it's going, like, I'm out. Like, that's where I don't. So for me, it was great to learn that, because now I know. So even I know with Stealth is I have to keep creating, and I'll keep doing this until that changes.
So, early on in this podcast, you talked about chaos, and now you're speaking about creativity. Mm-hmm. So it seems like you found a path here to channel all of your energy into more the creative side versus the least experience of the chaos that you talked about. Is that still going on? What's that journey been like? Maybe share something about that. That would be useful, I think.
Yeah. So now, right, when I launched the new company, I brought in the people. I brought in the people that kind of fill the gaps, things I'm not good at, not great at. So instead of like waiting to do that in a couple years, like I made the capital investments to do it right away. So I have talented people, and now I'm like really experienced with like Colby Index or different type of behavioral personality assessments. So how I architect the company, like we're putting the right person in the right seat, which allows me to kind of stay in my, let's call it zone of genius, if you will. Like if you're a strategic coach fan, like, so like all the crap I don't want to do, I put people in place to do that stuff because that's what they love to do. So it's like just taking a different approach on how to build a company the right way, because it was really painful the first time. And if I can avoid any mistakes or mishaps, but that allows me to stay in my zone. And that's what I do. Like I stay on doing stuff like this, like, connecting with you and doing podcasts and relationships. And last night I took two or three clients to the Lions game. They flew in and we had a great time, and really investing in relationships. And that's what I love to do. And that's what I'm able to do by having the right people here at Stealth to do the stuff I used to do, which I was terrible at anyway.
So then it seems to me what you just said is that the chaos part was all about the things that you really didn't want to do. And when you focus on your creative genius and the things that you do want to do, you're much more focused and much more, I guess focus is a word. You're much more creative in that zone. Actually, it adds to the company rather than taking away from it like it did before with all the chaos and the shifting gears and that you talked about before. So I think that's a huge epiphany right there. And again, a great nugget for us as the audience.
Yeah, it's like whack-a-mole, right? I think when you're just a visionary and you're running around doing everything, it's just you're just playing that game where you're whacking those, where the things pop up. I mean, that's going to happen, but if you have coverage and you're only focused on certain specifics, and that's why I always go back to EOS and always will recommend. I don't care what people use, like use some type of operating system, but it just creates alignment and buy-in from the organization. Level 10 meetings keep things so crystal clear. And that was something I failed to mention. That was probably the biggest game changer, was just organizing our meetings in a level 10 fashion and just getting stuff done and checking it off and moving on, and not, the same issues coming back every week and then more piling up behind that. We actually started to get stuff done. So yeah, I mean, for me, again, choose your heart. It's all hard. Like none of it's easy, but man, I got to the point where, I was playing like 90 rounds of golf a year, like not really doing much, to like, I didn't play a lot of golf this year and last year because I'm having a ton of fun, like launching a new company. Like that's what I wanted to do, which is awesome. And my wife was like, "Are you feeling okay? Like you're not golfing Friday, you're taking a meeting." And I'm like, I love what I'm doing. Like I love our process. I love how we're making an impact, and it's a ton of fun.
So I think that comes down to what you said before, purpose, right? You're the Spice Girls purpose, the whole thing. So what is your purpose? Seems like you've defined it a little sharper now than before.
I did write it out, but like I'm still kind of toying with it. Look, I mean, I think for me, I think I've shared this with you before, but I've struggled. I'm at 44, right? I mean, we've had some business growth, some wins, some losses. I tell you, I've been the big dog, I've been the fire hydrant, right? Like everything in between. But really for me, if I can focus on like God first, wife second, kids third, friends and family fourth, and then business fifth, if I can keep things in that structure of priority, my life is really easy. And if I notice things are getting a little off the rails or a little bit challenging, it's usually those priorities are flipped. But I did work on this. God first, wife second, father third, others next. Business is the tool, not the goal. So I think that's a big one, right? Business is a tool. It's not the end goal. It allows me to spend the time with my family, to make the memories. But like also like my why, right? Like grow, grind, build, honor God, love my wife, launch my kids, and lift others. Like I feel like as a parent, my job is to grow and go my kids and give them a great opportunity. And that's what I've just been striving to do is, just set a good example for them, work hard, right? Or, I'm an entrepreneur. Sometimes they don't even really understand what I do. They're like, you just like talk to people for a living. I don't get it. But but that's kind of where I'm at, right? I mean, I don't have it like fully figured out, but I do have the order figured out. Like that's been like, it's in me now. I know it. And like, once you see something, you can't unsee it or unhear it. And this, for me, the order of God, wife, kids, friends and family, business is like, business doesn't have to be the first thing. Like, don't chase money. Things just flow a little bit easier and seem to work really, really well when I'm in that order.
I think when that flow is present, I think money chases us. We don't have to chase it. So I think
it's crazy. I mean, it's you hear that, right? And sometimes you question, you're like, yeah, I read that in a book or heard it. Like, what does it mean? Like, I've experienced, I mean, through like, and also too, like there's been times like restarting this company, my partner and I, my old partner in my first company, co-founded it together. And over the last month or so, I've had a lot of people say, wow, that's crazy in and of itself, because most business relationships after the first go around, they're pretty much done. And the fact that we actually want to do this together, but here's the deal, we had a great working relationship in the first company. Like, we had our shit, but like every business relationship. But the reality was, well, we figured out early on with the help of EOS, like, I'm a visionary and he's an integrator, and we're going to stay in those lanes. And sometimes we cross over, but for the most part, we were both focused on our own lane. And we kind of realized that, man, like, when we work together and we're aligned, really great things happen, because he complements some things. And like, when we work on a project together, like, we just go. Like, we both have these crazy unique abilities to see things come together. And I think that's probably the most important thing. Like, it's probably me more than anything. Like, I don't have to win all the time, or I care. It's like, if that's what you want, like, let's do it. Like, I'm not trying to like smack a gavel down and be like, I'm the CEO and this is how it has to be, which I probably was earlier on, honestly. But now it's like, you know what? Like, how do we just be aligned and go? And we've been able to find that tempo in the new company by implementing those same practices of visionary and integrator. And it's been a ton of fun. So like, in honestly, when we make decisions or things happen, we're relating a lot of our decision making to like the first company. And like, it's kind of fun because it's like, remember when we did this, or remember when we did that? But it's just, it's been a lot of fun, right? So, I mean, it took us 5 years, I think, 5 or 6 years to get to $1 million in revenue on the first company. We hit over $1 million in revenue within the first year in this company. So it was kind of cool. And then we weren't chasing the money, but it was just a cool thing to like, hey, like, that's pretty cool. Like, we kind of figured it out, or we're doing something right. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, that reminds me of our friend Joe Caruso. One of the things he says is, help others be happy, right? Help people be happy. I think something like that. But tell you what it is, right? It's like your partner wants to do something, and you're like, okay, let's try that. It's not so rigid. So I think that's
like, we're taking time off. Like, it's just, I mean, he's out this week, and I didn't even know he was out till today. I don't even know what today is. Is it Wednesday? I think Wednesday, Tuesday. Like, it's that kind of stuff where like, it's just, I feel like I'm in a brand new body from like 10 years ago, if that makes sense. And I think as an entrepreneur, I think it's just by experience share learning. Like, EO was phenomenal for me, and just learning from other entrepreneurs and listening to their journey, listening to podcasts, probably just growing as a human, right? I mean, you're different from your 20s, 30s, 40s and kids and all these different experiences. But I always challenge people, like, what's your part in this? Like, what's your part in it first, But yeah, I still have a lot of work to do, though. I don't have it all figured out by any means, and I'm not trying to sit here and act like I do. But being aware, I think, is sorry, my microphone's not working out with me. I got to change it here.
Well, excellent. So let's leave us with some parting thoughts here. What if you take all this together? We talked about the holy grail, the purpose. You're still working at it, right? I think if you ever figured it out, you'd be bored again. So It'll
happen. It'll happen.
It's got to go ahead and figure it out yet. So leave us with some final thoughts. What if you take all this up and you wrap it up? What's one thing you want to leave us with?
Sit and think around personal, family, business, and really think through the next 3 years, right? And set a goal. And to me, it's the journey. It's not so much the goal. For example, I had Lions tickets to go to the game last night. I had 8 of them. And it was cool to invite clients, some prospects, and do all this stuff. And I've had all this for 8 months. So every day, I've seen them in my phone for 8 months, these tickets, and thinking about the day and how excited I was that, on Monday, the 20th or whatever, we're going to go do this thing. And we just did the thing last night. And it's I don't know. I had a great time, but I also the journey and the anticipation of that. I got a lot of value out of that. I say that about vacation, the vacation's almost for me, the planning and doing it all than actually doing the vacation. But I think if you can just cast that out, personal, family, business, and be realistic, right? And just be true to yourself. What do you really, really want? I think that can help a lot of people. It sounds simple. It sounds really boring and so basic, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's what I've learned. Things are pretty simple. You can keep them pretty basic and kind of be well with it. Yeah.
That's the holy grail, right?
Yeah, right.
I think and the other thing you said was it's the journey, not the destination. And you just gave us a real practical experience of how that actually unfolds. The anticipation.
And you just need the compass, right? And again, your compass might get rattled a little bit, and you might go off course, but just knowing that direction is really important.
That's terrific. So thanks for all that. Thanks for your time, Wes. A lot of great nuggets here. Appreciate your time. If people want to learn more about anything you said or want to connect with you offline, how can they do that?
Yeah, our website, or just you find me on LinkedIn, Wesley Mathews 1T, or email wes@stealthconsulting.com.
Excellent. I appreciate it, Wes. Thanks so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy running around doing all kinds of stuff, and
thanks
for taking some time and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.